video about how you got A star in English literature. Do a video about how you got A star in English literature. Do a video about how you got A star in English literature.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Hi guys, I'm back here today with the long-awaited how I got an A star in English literature. Basically, what I'm gonna do, because I want it to be really comprehensive and really helpful, I'm gonna do this first video about my general and prose, and then do 2 more videos about drama and poetry because they're a lot more detailed. Basically, the reason why I want to do that is I remember the struggles of revising and just scouring YouTube for a video that could just like save me and save my A-levels and like be really detailed. So I'm gonna try and give that to you. Obviously, I'm going to be speaking about the new spec. So I was on edXL's new spec, so that's what I will be addressing. So what I would say is get out your notepads and pens, get ready to make notes, because this video is what you've been waiting for, and hopefully it's worth the wait. Hopefully. So anyway, let me just explain a bit about like my A-level English literature. Basically, I was on edXL's new spec, so my year was the first year sitting these papers. First I thought like, oh my gosh, being on a new spec is gonna be so hard. Like, I didn't see it as a blessing, I saw it as a curse, but in the end it turned out to be the biggest blessing ever. Like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so I'll quickly go over year 12 English Lit. AS English Lit was a mess for me, a literal mess. So basically I got like a scrape A, and I shouldn't be surprised since I used work and like the most of my essays was just disgusting. And one thing that I've noticed is I've never done essay practice for exams. Like, I don't do essay practice, and I'll address this later. But yeah, that would be my biggest regret about A-level, both English and geography and history, is that I never do essay practices. I just take in content, and you shouldn't do that, because it came to like what, 2 days, a day before my exam, particularly drama, my drama paper, a day before my drama paper, who was doing essay plans a day before the drama paper? Who woke up in the early hours of the morning to do more essay plans on the day of the drama paper? So yeah, I'm gonna try explain it in a way where I tell you what I did and how I got through it. In AS I sat 2 papers. We sat a poetry and drama paper, and we sat a prose paper. But by A2 we had 3 papers, all split up: prose, poetry and drama, all varying in time lengths. And yeah, for prose I studied What Maisie Knew and Atonement. For poetry I studied John Keats and the Poems of the Decade anthology. And for drama I did King Lear and A Streetcar Named Desire. I think prose was the thing that scared me the most because it was wild, but I enjoyed it. A-level English Lit was interesting. It was hard. It was really hard. It was A-level I was like obviously most scared about, because that was what I needed my A star in for my offer. So that was strange and hard. It was hard, I'm not gonna lie. And I made a couple of mistakes, but hopefully by sharing this information it will help you to not make the mistakes that I did. And as well, I need to make this disclaimer. Guys, the title of this video is how I got an A star in English literature. It's not how to get an A star in English literature. So please take everything with a pinch of salt. Realize things might work for you, things might not work for you. I don't want anyone coming to me being like, I tried your technique on how to get an A star in English literature and it flopped and this is what happened. No, this is what I did to get the A star. So do it at your own risk. I'm not involved. If it helps you, then I'm involved, but otherwise I'm not involved. Like, okay, let's get straight into it. I think I've said everything. But what I'm gonna do now is show you my lever arch file. The first thing you guys are gonna have to do is get organized. So between two subjects, geography and English, I had 8 lever arch files. So I had a lever arch for exam practice, I had a lever arch for prose, poetry and dramas. So in this like mini series, I guess, I will take you through my folders, and then during exam season itself I bought like those A3 like file pocket things that you can carry that normally art students use and RM students. I bought one of those so like I could carry my actual revision like to the library and to and from school. So the lever arches were used more so during like January to around revision season. So they were just used throughout A2 to like put my work in, put my research in, This is my general lever arch file, and this is the general one. So let me take you through it. So obviously the most basic and important thing about A-levels, first and foremost, is organization. Organization is imperative. This was my exam practice folder. I went ahead and purchased these file separators, but they're excuse my crusty hands, don't mock it please. Anyway, I went ahead and got these file organizers, and these were the alphabetical ones, and I would say it's really important to get a lever arch because they're just so good and it helps you to separate everything. Okay, what this is printed from the Edexcel website. So this is all about AOs. It's all about assessment objectives, and it's directly from Edexcel's site. So I went away and I looked at all the AOs and what they're asking me to do. So I would recommend having like just a sheet at the front of your exam practice folder stating what is it that they want in the exam, what is it that they're looking for, because that's important. So, and then this is about essays itself, and I have a document actually that I would pin to my wall at home which is about essays itself, so I can show you that now. So I like, oh my gosh, I actually like stressed so much. I watched 1,000 YouTube videos about how to write essays, which you might see in here because I made notes, and I printed out so many documents online about essay writing and how to write essays, and this was very good. This was very good. I think, in my opinion, guys, the most important thing about your essay is the introduction and is the conclusion, and that was what I struggled on. My body of my essay would be good, I'd know what to talk about, I'd know what I want to look about, you know, PEE standard. But if that introduction is not buff, if that conclusion is not buff, it will make it so difficult to get the grade that you need. And the grade is literally in the introduction and in the conclusion, because once the examiner reads that introduction, they will estimate that, okay, you are an A-star student, okay, you are an A student, and then, or you're a B student. And then what they will do with the rest of your essay is that they will be looking for reasons to keep saying, yeah, this is an A-star student, this is an A student, this is a B student. And then it's that conclusion that solidifies it 110%. So you need to, like, my most important focus, or what I would recommend to focus on, is if you know your knowledge, which obviously, like I told you, I did know more knowledge and I didn't do enough practice essays, and maybe that's why my introductions and conclusions were lacking. If you know your knowledge, focus on the intros, and this document was just so good, and I even have it pinned up on my room right now because I'm still struggling. So this is just like about the structure of an essay, and I watched so many YouTube videos about literary essays, and these YouTube videos were saying that there were different types of essays, and this is what you have to do in these different types of essays. So you get an evaluative essay, which says over here a review of something, but This is a critical essay. And then this is just about writing essays in general, having a grabber, a topic and a thesis. This was amazing as well, and I can link the YouTube channel that I got this information from at the bottom, because he actually did quite help, like did some pieces on how to write an effective essay. So this was really like my exam practice, my essay perfecting folder, and I put some writing tips. And I broke it down again from the videos that I watched and made notes about the opening paragraph, the body paragraph, and the conclusion. Again, I had the spec printed out. All printed out, so, and coursework. I had a printout of the spec, and you need to keep this with you and keep referencing it. Then I had the band descriptors. So level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. And what I found about my essays is that I was always stuck in level 4, and I really needed to be in level 5 as much as possible. Then again, there's more breakdown of the band descriptors from Edexcel's site. So really use what your exam board gives you to give you direction. Because it was like the first time we were doing this spec, either made up my own questions or found related questions online, and maybe those were from like the same exam board but the old spec, but they still related and would still allow me to have some practice. So I did that for prose, I did that for poetry. All these are like either made up questions by me or questions that I found, and this was Keats and this was Poems of the Decade, and then this was drama. And you can see like at the top of every one I had the marks that they were awarded. So I actually made all of this on Word documents, would stay after school and do all of this. And I had more essay writing direction, and this is another one I would recommend that you read. And this was a really good article about essay writing. So yeah, you can see that in that section it was just about generally essay writing tips and essay writing itself. Now we move on to prose. So I would get like a plain file divider, put prose in the corner up there, write the 2 books I'm studying, and then have the specific prose descriptor from Edexcel, highlighted it, what I needed to know. So the learning outcomes are basically what they're expecting from your essay. So again, I took so much direction from the exam board, and for every paper we had like different band descriptors. So this one is specifically for prose. So you saw I had a general one at the start, and like now this one is for prose. And then again now for the prose section itself had the questions that I got for prose. And then these are my year 12 papers. As you can see, I got a total of 23 out of 44 for year 12 prose. And it allowed me to like go over it and look at the mistakes I made. So I made sure to request back my year 12 paper so I can see where I went wrong, and I definitely did see where I went wrong. My essay writing was just horrific. It was actually horrific. Like, these are more questions that we were given in class, exercises, and then these are like very brief essay plans that I did. So I'd write the question at the top and then do very brief like outlines of what would I say if I got this question. And yeah, I did that for a couple of questions. Just really brief outlines of just thinking, and this was mostly about just thinking about the content as opposed to actual essay writing itself. It was thinking about, do I know these books enough to be able to talk about it? So that's what this exercise was. I'll show you my prose folder, whereby you will see that basically it's different. It's different, and then I started to focus more about the introduction, body and conclusion. But these were just about seeing if I know enough content to be able to write an essay. for different essay questions. And I would put the practice essays or mock exam essays we did in class in this folder. So this was from a mock exam that I must have done in like January mocks. I think these were the A2 January mocks. And same thing again. The red, I like to color code things, if that makes sense. So the red means like this is the topic, the branch. And again, I'd write poetry and the poems that I'm studying. And then again, I have a copy of the poem questions specifically. If you guys are wondering why I printed so much, we had £2 printing credit a week at school. So I used to print from that, and I used to get my boyfriend to print for me, which was like one of the most helpful things that ever, like, just yeah. And then what I did was in year 12 for Oxbridge applications, our school sent us to something, and that was really useful. That's why I think I said in my why year 12 isn't useless video, one of my Oxbridge videos, is that everything I went through in that process ended up aiding me in A2, which was the most helpful thing like ever. Like everything I learned from that I carried on with me to A2. So this is basically what that is. And the skills like we did in the ELAT are obviously very, very useful for the unseen poetry bit of the exam, and just for essay writing and essay planning in general. So I got this document from that and from my experience like applying to Cambridge, and that really helped me to give me direction as well. And the blue is for poetry, as you can see. So I split it into Keats and had the specific mark scheme for Keats for his section, because they're different sections. So as you can see, again, I had a general one, and then I broke it down for each section to keep reminding myself, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to do, this is what I need to do. And then these are my January mocks again for that section, for the Keats and the poems of the decade. So I'd keep those with me. And then I think sometimes, you know, when you just get like inspiration and you're thinking, one of the things I did a lot in A2 was just to think, even if I was just like sitting there doing something else, just to think about the text and just think about what I'm reading, actually engage. I think that as well makes a difference between an A student and an A-star student, or an A-star student and a B-C student, is that you're actually like out here thinking about what you're learning, like no matter what you're doing. So I would just think, what do I think, and then I would write it down, like whatever I thought. And then this is the poems of the decade section, and again the specific mark scheme for that section. I had different annotated poems and different unseen poems, because that was one of the sections that we had to complete in A2. We'd have to do unseen poetry. So I looked at lots of that. Again, a past paper, I believe. Yeah, this was my January mock. So like you can see, this would be the folder where I'd keep my mock work and everything, and with the essay plans and the thinking about things, not necessarily doing a intro, conclusion and body, but just thinking, do I know my content? And then again, that's from my January mock. So I'd keep these and like see what I could learn from them, and it really allowed me to see how my writing was changing. So now we have drama, in which we have Streetcar Named Desire and King Lear, and my colour for drama was a red because it's dramatic. Again, I had the specification from Edexcel for what they wanted from drama, and then again my questions, which drama I actually took a bit more seriously than the rest, because A, I loved what we were doing, and B, I just did. So I actually did a lot more essay practice with drama. These are the questions that I corroborated for drama. A Streetcar Named Desire is purple, and this was the spec for Streetcar specifically. And again, this is my year 12 paper for Streetcar and drama. So this is, sorry, for poetry and drama. So I got 49 out of 72 at AS. And again, I got these papers back so I could see where I went wrong, what I did, how I messed up, and that was really useful to be able to reflect. And again, going back to like the past questions that you just saw, so what I would do is stick them like up here, and then like again think about my context. Think, do I actually know what I'm doing? Do I actually know what I'm talking about? I would highlight the keyword. And what I want to show you from this, actually what I want to talk about is something you'll see later in that actual revision like folder thing. You need to know what your papers are. I think I've said that before, but you really need to know what they are in terms of what their focus is. So I knew that for the focus for drama, it would be a thematic focus. That was a given, 100%. They would say explore this theme, explore masculinity, explore animal imagery. And this is from the information that we'd see obviously in exemplar papers from Edexcel. So bear in mind, this was the first time this paper was being sat by any year group. So you really have to look at those exemplar papers and see what you can get from them. And from that, I realized that for the drama section, both for King Lear and for A Streetcar Named Desire, they will ask a thematic question. They will ask about a theme. So I made sure to look at all the major themes. And as well, you have to revise smarter, not necessarily harder. You have to revise smarter. And a bit of it is just being tactical. I'm not gonna lie, a bit of it is being tactical. In my case, a bit of it was being tactical and realizing, okay, what are the major themes that I could look at that they could ask about, and let me focus on those. And you'll see a bit more of what I mean soon. But yeah, that's what I did. So again, cruelty, and again, this is just reflecting on my knowledge and what do I know about cruelty and streetcar. These were related to streetcar specifically, these questions. And then this is just about now me actually getting to how do I structure these essays? How do I get to this introduction and conclusion? How do I make sure that I write a good essay? And what do I need to include in those essays specifically for streetcar? So these were from the reflections of my AS exams, and it's like there's a formula, if that makes sense. So you really need to figure out the formula. There's a formula that you can work within, and generally that formula is usually like PEE, but it can get a bit more complex if you're looking for the AA stuff. So yeah, this was all just like me really getting to grips with writing more complex and literary essays about streetcar, not just, you know, your basic PEE intro conclusion. Like this was more complex, more weighty. And I remember for streetcar we didn't need critical arguments, but we did for King Lear, but I included them in streetcar anyway, and you'll see a bit more about that later. But it's just about really knowing how you write and focusing on your writing. And this is what all of this is. This is me, like, how do I write an essay? How do I make sure I get into those top right bands by writing an essay? Because you could put some of these exemplar essays, I think they're here. Yeah, I have exemplar essays and I'll show you a bit. Some of them are very basic, very basic, but it's the way in which they write that I was seeing. That's how they would get into top bands. So again, this is a practice essay that I actually did. I can't remember why drama meant so much to me to get a good grade in. I know coursework was 20%, poetry was 30%, drama was 30%, prose was 20%. It meant that my main focus was on poetry and drama. So know your weightings as well. More essay like writing skills. Like I really did focus on essay writing itself, because like I said, content is standard. You can know content, and for me that was like something that was easier. I could know the content. I knew my content, I just didn't know how to write. So that was my focus. Okay, so King Lear was purple. Again, same thing as everything else. Get the specific like breakdown, descriptors for King Lear. So a lot of this, as you can see, is me repeating things to myself. It's a lot of repetition, me repeating what I need to do, how I need to do it. So that's why you see so many specs. You will see even in my other folders more of these, because it is about having that constant reminder, this is what I need to do. Obviously you don't need to waste as much paper, but anyway. This was a classroom essay that I did, and it was marked by my teacher. This is the important stuff. This is very important that I will talk about. I will talk about this later. And again, there are more questions, and then more like essay practices. This is like proper essay practice from classroom. And more themes, because yeah, you really need to know what is your exam going to be about, if that makes sense. Like, what are they going to ask you about? And that's how I went about my like revision and organization and my learning. Like, I learnt around the themes and around the spec. Learn around the spec, and you guys should be so grateful for that spec, because once you get to uni and there's no spec, it's a struggle. So this is just like a classroom exercise. More essay questions that I did essay practice to, and like to think really like carefully about my essay writing. So I did quite a few like essay outlines, but not so much essays. The next thing is going to be exemplars. Again, I had to color code this green, and then everything's in red. So with this, I'll just keep it brief. These are just exemplars. Some from classroom where people did really well, and the others from Edexcel and their website, because they'll post exemplar papers, because this hasn't been done before. So with exemplars, I would just say, just look for them to see like what are they doing and what are they talking about. And for me, I noticed with exemplars that these top marks were being given to essays that are really simple. And one of the things that I noted from my year 12 and my GCSE English literature papers were that I would be really complex for no reason, or just like not organize my thoughts well. So the thing about these exemplars is that everything was organized so well. So I printed all the exemplars I could get, read through them, highlighted. I think I had, so for every time they were making a point, I highlighted green. I think for every time they were counteracting or quoting, I highlighted yellow. I think for every time they were doing something else, I'd highlight orange, and then for every time they were doing something else, I'd highlight pink. So I was like really engaging with these exemplar papers, like you can see, color coding everything, seeing how they're functioning, what are they doing, and color code everything. I think that was really helpful to then see. From color coding, you can then see the structure of their essay. You can see how the essay is working, and that really helped me to then see and move forward in my own essays as to how I should organize my thoughts. An essay is something where you organize your thoughts, and these were awarded level 5, top marks, 4 marks for organizing their thoughts well, even though what they're saying might not be interesting, what they're saying might not be revolutionary and different. With these examples, you just have to tick boxes basically. So you can see how an essay works and color code and like break it down. It really helps to give you direction. Ask other pupils getting high marks in your classes for their papers. That's what I would do. There was one girl, she's here studying HSPS, she goes to King's. Shout out Emma, yes. She was like my inspiration. Like, she was just a genius, and I would ask her for her essays as well. So use your classmates, use as much as you can. Again, this is what my teacher printed, Miss Bolton, from classwork essays, so we can learn from them. But I think it really gives you something to work towards. But yeah, the rest of this is just like more exemplar essays. That is it. That is my general folder, which took a bit of time. I'm sorry that took a bit long to go through. So yeah, I have to rush because my battery is about to die. So yeah, I just hope that you found that really useful as an intro to how I got an A star in English Lit. It's a bit long, It is a bit long, but I hope it helps you. So yeah, bye.